Okay, so today we're going to make roast beef with, let's call it vegetable gravy, right? It's really beef gravy, but I thicken it with vegetables. This is what I promised you guys online. Now, I've got 2 onions here, and I saved one of them to cut because I wanted to show you a very important part of cutting onions, something that you really only learn if you go to cooking school, and that's when I split this like this. Notice how there's this dry skin right here? You got to take that first skin. Let me show you that there are 2 skins here. There's actually this dry one here, and then there's this one underneath it, right? So you always take this top skin because it's so rubbery. Look at, I still can't even tear it. There it goes. So you don't want that in your food, okay? So always take that first skin, or that first layer past the dry skin. So I'll put that over there. Now, I just want to chop these onions. It doesn't matter how I do it. These are going to be a rough cut like that, right? Really doesn't matter. Like that. And then get this one. Notice how I've always got my fingers curled under, right? There we go, just like that. And I've got 3 or 4 carrots in here. You can see there's not a lot of care taken into them. You can just cut them in half for all I care. But they'll chop up easier in here. I've got my meat laid out here. I need to season it. So I just salt the whole thing. It actually takes a little bit more salt than you think it does. A little bit of black pepper here. A little bit more. There we go. Then you flip them all over. Like that.
This is a roast?
This is going to be a roast. Now, it'll actually be a stew because I cut them all up, right? But I cut them all up for a reason, and it's to brown them better. If you do it all in one piece, you get limited you get limited sides to the browning. You don't get as much browning surface area, and that's the important thing. I'll talk about this while the first piece of meat is going, if you can hear me over the fan and the sizzling. So let's come over here to the pan. Now, I like to do this in my cast iron. It's clearly not necessary, right? I've done it in Teflon stuff before, and regular aluminum and steel pans before. Teflon's probably not as good of an idea because you got to get this really, really hot, and Teflon starts to melt off after it gets in. It starts to fleck off in your food, and it's poisonous. So it's not a really good idea to do it with Teflon. But here, I'm going to turn this on now. But I put a little oil in here, and then you see how instantly that starts smoking. That's exactly what we want, because we want this so incredibly hot to sear these guys. And no, you're not sealing in any flavors. And you're not sealing in any juices. You're not sealing in any flavors. You're not sealing anything in. There's no such thing. But what you're doing here is you're caramelizing the outside. There we go. So, this is a super important step when you're making a sauce. And that's what you're doing here. You're making a sauce. I haven't made any stock videos, but there are a couple things you need to make any sauce a success, and one of them is a base, right? It's kind of like programming without knowing the language, right? You just can't do it. You have to have a base, right? You have to know something. And so this is going to be the base. You notice how that's nice and brown right there? I think a lot of guys on TV don't get their stuff brown enough. Because I need to make, if I'm going to make a nice dark gravy, how's it going to get dark if it doesn't take the darkness from the meat?
Scorch it?
Right? And so you've got to get this nice and dark. That one's good. And you're just going to do it on all sides. See, that's lovely brown. That's lovely brown. Look at that. That's gorgeous. And so all of this is going to start to build your sauce. And we'll do this in a couple batches here.
We're looking at.
I'm just looking at something. So, okay, I'm looking at this second side. See, this first side versus the second side, one of them's nice and dark here. There we go. That's nice and dark, and this one not so much. So we'll take it off, and we want it to do it on most of these sides. We want this beef to be nice and dark. So it takes a few minutes to get all this done. This is the longest, hardest part of this whole process, right? But without making demi-glace, which I couldn't even begin to teach you guys demi-glace today, there's no way to make a sauce without going through this step, because we're starting with water. And if you want to make water into something with a lot of flavor, that flavor has to come from somewhere.
And the people at home that aren't fresh chefs, what is a demi-glace?
Well,
In short,
it's a beef stock that's been reduced all the way down to half.
Very
so it's
strong.
Nice and thick, right? If you were to take a demi-glace and cook it down even more until it's a paste, that's what you get a lot of times when you get those bouillon pastes at the store, right? Except they way oversalt them and all that, right? But that's called a full glace, and this is a demi-glace, which is a half glaze. But that's cooked all the way down, and it's super concentrated. So it's just a beef stock that's cooked halfway down. And now, you see this side I just finished? I've got this one and this one. Those are actually pretty close, and I'm going to stand that one up and get that other side. And now this one again, that one's looking good, so I'm going to stand it up on its side and stand this one up on its side. And just start rotating these guys around like that. This one right here is going to get the side treatment as well. That one right there. That one right there. There we go. Now I've got some room here. Okay, so we're finished with our meat. We got it all piled up right here, and you can see it's lovely, nice and dark, right? But it's not burned, it's just seared nice and dark. Look at that, that's a beautiful piece right there. And that's it. I don't think they do it long enough on TV. They get it to a nice light brown. You can't make a really rich sauce like that, right? So, I still got my fire on. I turned it down low so it doesn't burn away here while I'm talking. And I said it before, a couple times already, but I'm going to say it again because it's incredibly important. This browning process is where the flavor in your sauce comes from. You don't have it without it. Am I right?
You're right.
I am right. See? Even she says I'm right. So, something else. So we cut off the film in the because you didn't have to sit there and watch that entire process, right? Every now and then the pan will get a little dry. Just add a little bit more oil if it gets dry, right? Turn them on all sides until they're the color you want them to be. If it starts to get too wet, if they start to leach a lot of liquid out, then you have to do less at a time, right? You may even have to stop and wipe the water out and re-oil it, get it really hot again, and then put it back in there. You don't want them to boil, you want them to sear. Okay, so now that that's done, I'm going to put all these guys back in here. You take them out as they're done, right? You don't leave them all in there. And now I just add my veggies. I've got my carrots here. Actually, let me flatten that out a little bit. Got my carrots. I've got to collect my onions. Onions. I need more onions. That. There we go. Just like that. And that's two kind of large onions. They're not super. Now, you don't have to put as much in as I do, but you'll see that it's going to be advantageous. Now you put water in here. If I can get something here that pours. And you want to definitely cover the meat. There we go. And so this covered the meat and part of the vegetables, but at the very least cover all the meat. This is a braising method, right? Now, since this is stock, I need my bay leaves. I got 3 bay leaves here. You can only use 2 if you want to, it doesn't matter. And I've got my thyme. I'm using fresh thyme here, right? You can use dried thyme, it's okay. I just grow thyme, so I'm going to use the fresh stuff. And I'm going to cut off a little twine here because the boy got me these little tiny pieces. They're going to be too hard to dig out later, so I'm just going to kind of tie them up a little bit there.
If you use dried thyme, obviously you wouldn't have to do this.
Right.
Even if you use, let's say, live thyme, fresh thyme, this is kind of a convenience.
Yeah, if they were bigger, I would have just left. I would have left them out. So I can't seem to get my finger through that knot. There we go. There we go. Just tie a little knot there. Tie another one up here. There we go. Toss that in there like that. I used hot water. Now you can throw this in the oven as is, but I prefer to bring it to a boil first. It kind of sets things in the oven off in the right direction first, right? Now something else I like to do, since it is a stock, let's throw in a couple cloves. Couple cloves. Yeah, I won't have to dig those out. Okay, so I've also got like 3 pieces of garlic. You know, how much is really unimportant? Just put some garlic in there. I've got water, I've got thyme, I've got bay, I've got carrots, I've got onions, I've got my meat. I'm not going to salt it just yet because I salted the meat really well, so I'll salt it at the end. And, oh, and I've got some cloves. And we're done. So now all I've got to do is cover this guy, and I'm going to wait for it to boil. Once it boils, I'm going to put it in the oven at 350 or 300, whatever you like, and then I'll check it every half an hour or so until it's done. It'll probably take about an hour and a half.
How do you know when it's done?
It'll be nice and perfectly soft. We'll come back and show you. So we'll come back. Okay, so everything is out of the oven. Now mine took about 2 hours, maybe a little bit longer. Your mileage will vary, right? So don't take it out until it looks nice and soft and squishy like this. Watch. See how lovely, how it just falls apart? Just lovely soft. Look at that.
Come on, one for the cameraman.
Absolutely. So, if yours doesn't look like that, put it back in. I took the tongs, I took them all out of there, I took out the thyme and the bay leaf, and I even found both the cloves. So now all we've got left is just juice with carrots and onions. And that juice is so carroty. Here, let me get the spoon so you can see. But see how much lovely color that has, how dark and beautiful that is? That's a real stock. Now, I'm going to have the cameraman taste this because it is so sweet and carroty from the carrots and the onions. Is that lovely?
Ooh, that's very nice.
Now, this is ordinarily where if you were making a different type of stock or a different type of sauce or gravy, we're making more of a gravy, right? Where you would pass all this stuff out and then thicken it with some kind of roux or something like that, right? But the whole point of this is to thicken with veggies, because the vegetable matter in there is just a lovely thickener, and it's 100 times more healthy. Is it really 100 times? But it's several times more healthy, right? Because you got the flour, that's the extra calories, and the gluten, and the starch, and all that stuff in there, right? So we're just going to take our lovely little burr mixer here, and just, let me get...
I think that's the single greatest kitchen appliance outside of, like, the stove itself.
Yeah. And just do this thing up here. And look how it's already thickening up. Already. I'm going to stop it and show you how that is lovely thick. So we're going to keep going until all of this is pureed up in there. Okay, so she turned it off while we did the bulk of this. It only took, what, a minute? I mean,
Me too.
It really doesn't take long to get it nice and smooth. And that's the thing, is it doesn't have to be super smooth. This is a nice rustic dish, right? But it will actually be pretty smooth. There we go. I think that's, yeah, that's pretty good. Now, this is really almost the exact same way that you would make vegetable soup, right? Make carrot soup or mushroom soup or broccoli or anything like that. So it's...
Except without overcooking the crap out of the vegetables.
Yeah, exactly, right? So now look at what we've got here. We've got this lovely thick gravy, right? Now, if that's too thick for you, thin it out with some water, thin it out with some stock, thin it out with some milk, with some cream if you want to, thin it out with some bourbon if you want to. Now there are so many variations. This is just a basic carrot and onion gravy, right? You could have filled that entire thing with garlic instead and made a garlic thing and then put a little bit of honey on the end, right? You could have filled that whole thing with mushrooms instead. And instead of water, you could have used beer. And you could use mushrooms and beer and then burr up the mushrooms in there and have a lovely dark mushroom beer gravy. Mm-hmm. The point is it's the matter that matters, right? So now I'm just going to adjust my seasonings. Let me see what I need. Oh my God, not much. It's incredibly sweet from the carrots. It's almost like candy. You'd swear to God I put sugar in here. A little pepper. Now, you could also, with something like this especially, you could add curry to it. It would be lovely.
You'd want that to cook in, though.
You could, or you could add it on the end. You could add coconut milk to this if you didn't want regular milk, right? If you didn't want cream or something, you could add coconut milk and give it a little island spice. Not, Oklahoma island, but
Somebody who is stuck on an island.
Yeah.
From an Oklahoma.
So right now I'm cooking mashed potatoes right here because we're gonna put this whole thing over mashed potatoes and just have this lovely vegetable gravy, and it is so full flavored. Let me see how my seasoning went. All right, tell me what you think of that.
It's lovely.
It is so good and so incredibly healthy because there's nothing but vegetables and water and a little bit of meat flavor, right? So this is your basic vegetable gravy.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
I'm going to recap just a little bit and say don't forget that you could put mushrooms in there, and I almost did, I just kind of forgot. You could fill the whole thing if you go to one of those Asian markets and get those nice packages of pre-peeled garlic. You can dump a couple of those in there and just fill that whole thing up with garlic and the beef, and then just pour a little bit of honey in there, have kind of a candied garlic thing, and that garlic will mellow so much in the oven over 2 hours, and then just burr it up, and it'll thicken it up. You could thicken it up with potatoes instead. You could thicken it with rice. Just put cooked rice in there, and if you got some leftover brown rice or something, right? You could do it. You could thicken it with rolled oats. After you take it out, if you don't have any vegetables in there, right? Which you should always make it with vegetables, right? But if you want to pass your vegetables out, you could put some oats in there and cook the oats in there, and then burr it up and do it with oats. So there are a number of things that you can do to avoid flour, and this is just one of them. I would stay away from the fibrous stuff. I wouldn't thicken it with like
parsnips or asparagus.
With broccoli or asparagus or something like that. Cauliflower I think would be funny. I wouldn't do it with Brussels sprouts either, right? But parsnips would actually kind of be nice if you can get the lovely unfibrous ones, right? You use the ends of them and whatnot. So we've got some roasted carrots going in the oven to go along with this. You just peel carrots and leave them as whole as you can. Just cut them in half. Put a little olive oil, salt, and pepper, and then just throw them under the broiler. Not in the oven part, but under the actual broiler as close as you can, and let them get nice and dark. Flip them every now and then, and you're golden. So there you go. That is roast beef with vegetable gravy. And man, look at just one more time, just close up on that loveliness right there. Look at that. Lovely, lovely, thick gravy that you can make with chicken and pork and anything. Done.